The abuse started when I was 7 years old. I remember it vividly.
I'd been out with my family and my drink had been spiked, and I was badly beaten up and raped.
In those days, you shared a bed no matter who you were visiting, and it just so happened that I was sharing a bed with this 18-year-old, and straight away, that's when the abuse started. I was threatened to not say anything. I tried to tell my mum and my gran, but nothing in those days was ever talked about in those kind of terms. Sexual abuse is a thing that never happened.
I was found the next morning wandering the city, not knowing what had happened to me. I was in a bad state and I had cuts over my face and bruises everywhere. And so we knew something had happened, so we went to the police, still not knowing exactly what had happened, just that I'd been beaten up. And it was from there that they actually then sent me to go and have a rape kit done and things, and it was only through that we'd realised what had happened.
What's important is that people understand that if they come to us, that they will be dealt with by experienced and especially trained members of staff. We are well trained in the trauma-informed model. We work a lot with shame, blame, guilt, and whatever people decide to bring to us, whatever they feel that they want to share, it's important that they know that they'll always be heard and they'll always be believed, and they'll never be judged.
By the time I was 9 years old, I was absolutely terrified. And I think all of a sudden we stopped going to this house. And obviously the abuse stopped as well. But nothing was ever said.
There was lots of different interviews with police, but I had very limited memory of pretty much anything happening. So they were able to trace my steps on CCTV. But there were still long periods of time missing. The investigation got closed because they'd done everything they could do, followed all possible leads. So I just decided, okay, right, we're leaving it now. I want to pretend like this didn't happen.
We try to encourage the client that we will listen to what they've got to say and they can tell us what they want. Well, once the client phones and they may be so nervous and frightened of talking, they can't sometimes get out what they want to say. So once, we've calmed them down and just talk so that they can just listen to what all I'm asking or what we require in order for them to move forward with counselling. After we've gone through that, the client may say, "Thank you so much. It was really a big ordeal for me to ring just today." The fact that how you deal with that on the phone helps that client to calm down and realise that, basically they can speak to a service who can support them.
Our services are available to all survivors in North Wales, starting from the age of 3. Last year, we had over 800 referrals, and we provided therapeutic support to almost 1,200 people from North Wales. North Wales continue to have some of the worst records of child sexual abuse, sexual violence and rape in the whole of Britain. And our referrals are growing monthly, so it's a real growing concern.
or didn't do very well in school. Just a primary school in Glasgow that I went to, then on to secondary school, but I never left with any qualifications. I was glad to get away from school because I think those 2 years were the most important for me to, for my education. But it really did affect that.
So I was really quite an outgoing person with lots of confidence. I was, to some extent, a bit of a party animal. I really enjoyed just being out and socialising, and then everything changed, and I kind of shut myself away for the past 6 years.
When I was 17, just decided that's what I was going to do, just move out of Glasgow altogether and sort of put everything behind me, everything that had gone on.
I did go down the path of turning to things like alcohol to help numb how I was feeling. I had been telling myself for so long that nothing had happened. I'd started to believe that it was just me experiencing things.
There are cases when people have suppressed their feelings for so long that that's how they've managed to get by in the last 20 years, and something might happen which means that they can't suppress it any longer. So it may mean that, I don't know, that there could be a crisis point where they might lose their job, they're drinking too much, those sorts of things, which would be a catalyst to, opening the floodgates, if you like, for dealing with maybe what may be behind some of those. It can be various reasons. The time has to be right for that person, regardless of how long it's taken.
I was so ashamed of myself, and it was like my brain just didn't work anymore. I would forget things so quickly, and I decided to punish myself for that. The only thing that gave me any relief at the time was harming myself, and it kind of felt like I deserved that harm. No one knew that any of that was happening until we finally got to the point where I had to be honest with everyone. My family were so distressed. Once we kind of opened the floodgates, everything came tumbling out, and everyone realised just how far down the line I had gone, and that I was actively not wanting to be alive anymore.
My son was born, great, happy, went on holiday with him to Spain. 3 years later, my daughter came along. But everything was fine, great family life, still went on holidays together, 4 of us. And it's when, I know exactly when I started thinking about things again. That's when my son was coming up to 7 years old. That sort of triggered it. I started getting some counselling.
And it took 6 years to get to the point where I then realised I needed some help. And actually, when I first came to the service, I was still in a fair bit of denial about it. It was my family who realised something was seriously wrong. And actually, going through this service and having that counselling, it has saved my life.
18 months ago, at Christmas, we all came down with COVID. I got it pretty bad. I was off work for 4.5 months. It gave me more time to dwell on things again. But the nurse at the hospital asked me all these different questions. So she said, "Are you sure you haven't got depression?" So I thought, no, I'm not depressed, I'm all right. But then when you think about the symptoms of depression, anger, not sleeping, tiredness, fatigue. So when I showed this list to my wife, she said, "Go and see the doctor." So that's what I did.
A lot of the work we do is armouring them with instant techniques that they can access, which we refer to as grounding techniques. So in those instances, we would build on some of the practices or techniques that they already utilise. So it could be, offering different breathing exercises, helping them, be able to make sure that they have more self-care in their daily routines, and that they know how to access different, resources.
If it wasn't for RASASC, I don't think I'd be together with my wife. It's definitely made me a much calmer person, a nicer person. Not much else to say, really. I'm just really looking forward to my future.
I was actually completely terrified because I'd got to the point where I wasn't leaving the house for anything. And so my parents had to really drag me, and they actually allowed my mum to be in the session with me because my anxiety was so bad. I was really struggling to verbalise things.
I think a lot of the work that we do, as well as is what we refer to as psychoeducation, which is sort of talking them through the trauma process, what happens to the body, what happens to the mind, so that they can make sense of the feelings of overwhelm, of the anxiety, the debilitation. And it's when they understand how trauma affects the mind and the body and their physiological responses to it that arms them in a way they understand what's happening.
Within minutes of meeting my counsellor, she reassured me and made me feel like actually I wasn't completely losing my mind. Someone understood what was happening and was able to tell me why my body and my mind were acting in the ways it was. And I've managed to make a kind of full circle now, and it is completely down to this service that I am still here.
I've held on to this for nearly 50 years. Without any doubt whatsoever, I would tell myself as a teenager, get help as soon as possible. It's not embarrassing. Tell your doctor if you don't want to tell your family, and they'll get you in touch with the right people. And for me, RASASC, definitely the right people to be in touch with.
We give our hearts into this role to make sure that we deliver a good service to each client that accesses our service.
Don't try and pretend everything's fine. Don't deny your feelings. Let yourself feel how you feel. And don't be ashamed. I was so ashamed for so long, when I now know that actually it wasn't my fault and there is a future out there for you. You just need to be honest with yourself and honest with other people.
We will work with them at their own pace. We will work with what they want to share, when they want to share it. And above all, they'll always be heard, they'll always be believed, and they'll never be judged.
This young man could have gone on to hurt other people. And if I'd have said something at the time, it might have stopped that. Stopped that abuse in its track, that stopped him hurting another boy going through what I've been through. And that still does hurt me that now. So it does hurt that I've not been able to help someone else. And that's the reason I'm here now, is that get help as early as you can and stop it in its tracks.
It just helped me accept that I was a victim, but I was also a survivor, and it did help me to just save my life, really, get a second chance at living.